It's hard to hear. We'll talk after the show.
Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Live Before Lock show. I'm Dave Loughran, and with me, as he is every Tuesday night, Adam Scherer, breaking down a two-gamer here on Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. Getting a little bit deeper into the playoffs here. Already seen a couple of teams eliminated. It looks, Adam, like the Portland Trailblazers are on the brink of elimination. Don't stand a chance. Monster dogs tomorrow. Damian Lillard's out. But tonight, Luka Doncic, man, played with that hurt ankle. Had a monster 43 points, 17 rebound, 13 assist, triple-double. Coming back for more in a big Game 5. I think the Clippers take this one, but a lot of that's is all hinging upon, can Paul George come out of his coma?
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy, and I know you had good stats on it. You sent them to me earlier, but it's not like they're defending him well and forcing him into contested shots. He's just missing open and wide open looks. It's pretty crazy. I don't remember if it was with you or with Josh or with Jason, but making the comment that do we find out after the playoffs that George is hurt? But even if he's hurt, you would expect him to make the shots that he's missing, considering how open he is.
Yeah, I know. And we're going to dive into all of that throughout today's show. Only two games, but there's a lot to get into, and you want to try and cover all of your bases, leave no stone unturned on a small slate like this, and that's exactly what we're going to do. You guys know it. We're happy to have you with us. Hit that thumbs up if you're just coming in, which you are because, well, the show just started. Appreciate all you guys that are popping that thumbs up before the show even starts. You're the greatest. Subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. It does help us a lot. Makes it so we can continue to do free content here on the YouTube channel. So before we dive into this, want to make you aware, let you know about our great sponsor, SuperDraft. They have the $7,500 jump shot today, $1,500 up top, only 734 entries. Truly winnable top prizes here. Might not be 100 G's, but it is a great way to build your bankroll, especially knowing that it's a pretty new site. And when you get in on things relatively early, before other people do, you learn the game better, you understand it better, and you find an edge that might not have been found by other people. There's a multiplier mode. There's no salaries. So somebody like Lou Williams today has a 1.65 multiplier, meaning if he scores 50 fantasy, let's be a little more realistic. If he scores 40 fantasy points, he gets 1.65 times that. So 65% more than he actually scores, whereas Luka Doncic is only a 1x multiplier. So you can play whoever you want. If you wanted to come into this and play Kawhi and Luka and Jokic and Murray and Mitchell, you could, but it's not always the best way to go, because if there's somebody with a 35 fantasy point game with a 2x multiplier, you're getting 70 from him. It's a really cool format. I suggest everybody checks it out. Think you'll enjoy it. And more than that, even if you don't, well, you're going to get some free money in doing so, because you get $10 free in Super Cash by signing up using the promo code Awesemo10, AWESEMO10, and $20 free in Super Cash injected straight into your account by depositing $100 or more. So 10 for 10, 20 on 100 with Awesemo10, AWESEMO10, all one word. Go to superdraft.io or download it in the App Store. That is the sponsor of the NBA Live Before Lock show. Whew. All right, Adam, let's get into this. Denver and Utah. Game was a 3-point spread earlier. It's at 2.5 points now. Denver on their last gasp here, with Michael Malone trying to figure out some way to make this work, whether it's playing Michael Porter more or less because his defense has been dreadful. Still waiting on Gary Harris news. We'll start with Denver. It's been a tough go for them. They've lost 3 straight after an overtime win, and a convincing overtime win, at least in overtime in Game 1. They've really struggled. They've been blown out twice. Last game, Jamal Murray hit a 3 in a meaningless spot, and they still lost. It's been really tough, and I pointed this out to Sal Vetri on today's morning strategy show. Their defensive rating in this series is 131.1. They're allowing 131 points per 100 possessions. That's unbelievably bad for a team whose defense was really decent throughout the year and pretty great last year.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of it, obviously Gary Harris questionable for this game, and they are really missing him. And, the only real solution that they had to even try was Torrey Craig on Donovan Mitchell, which wasn't really that effective. It was more effective than anything else has been. But then you basically just have a dead spot offensively as well, whereas Gary Harris can do quite a bit more than Torrey Craig can. And so I think they've really been missing him, and it's really shown in a couple of aspects, both offensively and defensively.
I think so too. Do you have any hunch as to whether or not Harris is going to be active today?
Normally, I would say I don't think he plays, but the quote from their beat writer, I think, made me lean a little bit towards him playing, because it kind of, I don't remember the exact quote, but the gist of it was it'll come down to Harris's comfort and confidence or something like that. Like, to me, when you're in a series like this and you need to win this game, if you say to Gary Harris, hey man, do you feel like playing? And that's the criteria for if he's going to play, that makes me think he probably does.
It's a really strange quote that you just mentioned, because if it's a spot where they say, if you play and you're not 100%, it could get worse. That's one thing. But if it's, hey, you might not be 100% comfortable tonight, but you'll be okay. Most players in a spot like this are going to say, of course I'm playing. Right.
And that's what I'm thinking too. So the full quote, I just found it from Harrison Wind. Mike Malone said, I would never ask a player to go out there if he does not feel confident in his abilities to go out there and perform. Gary Harris will play when Gary Harris is comfortable and confident in going out there and not just playing, but can you play and help your team? And I think that's what Gary's probably battling. If he's not able to play, Gary has not been able to play since March 11th. And that means other guys will have to step up. We've been dealing with less than ideal situations since before we came down here, blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't sound like a physical issue. I mean, any more so than anyone coming back from an injury normally would be.
It's very interesting. All right. Well, at least we have that. Hopefully we'll get some new information sooner than later. We'll let you know if we do. This game tips off first at 6:30, then Dallas and the Clippers at 9. But while we're on the subject, we'll start with Denver first then, Adam. Nikola Jokic leads all players in touches per game in the postseason. So it's not like he's not getting the chances. He just isn't giving us those monster peripheral numbers on a daily basis, right? He might have a decent rebounding game and his assist totals are okay. His scoring totals have been pretty solid, but you haven't gotten that monster Jokic game yet in this series. And, credit to some extent what Quinn Snyder has done defensively with this team and also Rudy Gobert. Do you think this is a good spot for Jokic today at his current price point?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not treating it any differently than I have in the previous games. I still don't think the matchup with Gobert is particularly scary. I still think the price point's pretty appealing, and you're getting huge minutes from him. I do think Porter going to the bench, Porter and Craig both went back to the bench last game. I think that's something that can benefit Jokic because replacing Porter with Jeremy Grant is a lower usage guy. So you're going to have less, pull up threes from Michael Porter coming down the court. So, maybe a little bit more usage for Jokic than you got in the first few games of the series. But overall, I think it's really it's still the same spot that it was, regardless of how he's played to this point. We've seen it in a lot of other spots so far during the playoffs where you can, dive into how teams are defending and how different players are involved offensively. But you really have to be careful doing that too, because you get, a lot of just down games followed by bounce back games. And there have been several instances where kind of just sticking with players pays off really, really nicely. So I still think the salary looks good for him. You also, of course, now you don't have Embiid on the slate. That's kind of been the hardest thing for rostering Jokic so far, is that him and Embiid have been playing on the same days, but now you don't have that. So I think Jokic, looks really good here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have no issues with it at all. The Embiid point makes sense as well. It's a 2-game slate. Things are beginning to thin out a little bit. And again, Jokic is still getting the opportunities. The one thing I found strange, though, his potential assists in this series are 9 per game. Jamal Murray's are 13. Usually, especially over like a large sample, Jokic always averages quite a bit more assist opportunities than Jamal Murray. Do you think it's something Utah's doing to limit him as a ball handler down low? Or do you think this is just something that if they continued playing into the next month, we'd see kind of balance itself out?
Right. I mean, my guess is that you'd see it balance itself out. The actual assist percentage also favors Murray so far, 28.3% compared to 22.5% for Jokic. So, I think you would see it balance itself out. But, you know, it is at least something to keep in mind if you're kind of just at a point where you need a tiebreaker between, you know, Jokic and Kawhi or something like that.
What are your thoughts on Jamal Murray? Kind of a squandered 50-point game last time out because Donovan Mitchell one-upped him with 51 points and that 2-point win. But Jamal Murray had a monster performance. He dropped 50 points on 18 for 31 shooting. He was 9 for 15 from long range, 60% from deep, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. It was a huge spot. That game was not an overtime game, and he played 43 minutes. I think you see Malone throw caution to the wind here in a must-win spot. Jamal Murray, I know you can't predict him or project him for that many minutes, but I'd be shocked if this game's close and he doesn't play close to what he played, if not more than he played on Sunday.
Yeah, I think you can at least put him in for, you know, about 40 minutes here. And he's another one that I think should benefit from Porter going to the bench, just because, you know, not that Porter is dominating shots when he's with that starting unit, but he's still a 21 to 22% usage guy being replaced by Jeremy Grant. So you should just get more shots in general for Jokic and for Murray. He's typically someone that I'm very cognizant of ownership on, because normally he is very scoring dependent. You know, obviously we mentioned that the assists have been up in this series, which is good to see. But again, with it being a 2-game slate, you don't really have a whole lot at this price point to pivot to. And what you do have is owned similarly. You know, looking at the ownership projections for DraftKings, you have Paul George at 40.5%, you have Murray at 35, and you have Gobert at 35. They're all in that $7,600 to $8,200 range. So it's not like there's one guy where you say, oh, everybody's going to be on Murray now because he had a big game. I'm going to go to, you know, X, Y, or Z because they're coming off of a bad game, whatever. So I think without that pivot really being there and it being kind of an empty price point, that Murray from a roster construction standpoint probably still does fit really nicely in the lineups, especially because you do have quite a bit of value for it being a 2-game slate.
And when you look at usage, through 4 games in this series, Jokic has a 30.9% usage rate. Murray's at 30%. Then it falls off a cliff. Like Jeremy Grant's played the 3rd most minutes in this series. He has a 15.8% usage rate. Monte Morris, 4th most minutes, 14.3. Paul Millsap's played the 6th most minutes. He's at 17.9. Torrey Craig at 10.8. Michael Porter at 22% is the only other player to have worked his way into the 20% range. So I think we can agree on one thing: whether they win or lose, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray are both going to play a ton of minutes, and they're both going to control the ball. They're going to control the flow or the pace of play on this team. They're going to be the playmakers. They're going to be the scorers. And that's one thing, at least, that you can hang your hat on. Yeah,
completely agree with that.
Fantasy points per minute, Murray's at 1.39 here, and Nikola Jokic at 1.29. Murray's a pretty volatile guy, though. Like the problem is, while he has a assist rate up near 30% in this series, Adam, he's not somebody that we can rely on a nightly basis to give us that type of facilitating role. Whereas, you know, a lot of other point guards that can also score are usually always locked in for at least 6, 7, 8 assists on a bad night. Jamal Murray can fall off a cliff in that regard, but he can also go out and throw up monster numbers like he did last time out. So I think your analysis makes sense on him. What about the rest of Denver? Let's start with Millsap and Jeremy Grant here in the front court.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you have some pretty decent value coming from Denver here too, since they switched up their starting lineup. You still have Jeremy Grant at 4,700. You have Monte Morris at 4K. Neither of these guys do you expect to be really productive on a per minute basis, but you should just get enough minutes where it doesn't really matter. For the season, this is during the regular season, with Jokic and Murray on the floor, Jeremy Grant's average 0.62 DraftKings points per minute, and Monte Morris is at 0.6. But if you assume both of these guys play 36 minutes, you know, that's still an average projection of around 22 points. And obviously in any given game, there's the upside for more. So on a 2-game slate, I think that they do offer value. Jeremy Grant could actually play even more than that 36 minutes. He lost about 4 minutes in the second quarter last game with his 3rd personal foul. Obviously that is something that could happen again, since he's going to be spending a lot of time attempting to defend Donovan Mitchell. But if they're not looking to give Torrey Craig a bunch of minutes, and if Gary Harris doesn't play, the only real option that they have is to just run Jeremy Grant into the ground.
Do you think that happens? Like, if you had to guess how this plays out, right? Tell the story. Michael Porter defensively, they have the Jazz have just come up and isolated him on. It might have been you that DM me. I just or said something like, I just watched the Jazz isolate him on defense for 4 straight possessions and score on all of them. I think it was actually you that said that.
I didn't say that. I was the one that pointed out, I think, the first game of the series that he was benched for overtime because Utah was doing that.
Okay, somebody else said, I can't remember who it was, but I saw the exact same thing, and he has been a massive liability defensively despite how talented he is on the opposite side of the ball.
Yeah, and so I'm expecting the rotations to look similar to last game. You know, it's not like it ended up being a 2-point game. Denver was winning for most of the first half. They basically had one bad run in the second half. They had a good run in the fourth quarter, didn't quite get back to win the game. But it's not like they changed up the starting lineup and things went really poorly. It was a pretty evenly matched game. So I'm expecting similar here because I just don't think, you know, Porter's too much of a liability on the defensive end. It's harder to hide him now too that you have Conley in there. It's just one more, you know, guy that can score. It was a little bit easier when you were getting more minutes with like Royce O'Neal and Juwan Morgan on the floor at the same time. But now you're getting basically none of that. So I think it's harder for him to be out there. So if Gary Harris plays, you know, I really don't know how many minutes to expect from him. I assume we'd get some kind of quote if and when he's ruled in. But if he's out, I think you're getting as many minutes as Jeremy Grant can physically play without getting in foul trouble or fouling out. Because if Jeremy Grant's not on the floor, you have to have Torrey Craig on the floor basically, or Mitchell to be on the bench. And Mitchell, we know, is going to play around 38 to 40 minutes. So he's out there almost all the time. So I think that if Harris is out, you're getting at least 36, if not like 40 minutes from Jeremy Grant.
Okay. Yeah. And Jeremy Grant, as you mentioned, fouled out very late in that game, but very, very possible that he plays 40 minutes today. Do you think Monte Morris, if Gary Harris is out, do you think Monte Morris, number one, how much would he be affected by that? And number two, how much run do you think he gets? Because he hadn't cracked 30 minutes in this series until last game. Malone obviously trying to make some adjustments. They didn't work. They didn't get the shit kicked out of them, but but they still didn't win. 36 minutes from that last one. Morris is going to give you a discounted price point on an abbreviated slate. Let's just assume for a minute now that Harris doesn't play. Where do you stand on him? He's 4K on DraftKings, 4K on FanDuel. And if you're looking for a value guy, 1.8 on SuperDraft multiplier.
So my assumption would be that Morris plays another, 34 to 36 minutes like he did last game. I do think those minutes are a little bit more questionable than they would be for Jeremy Grant, because you could basically replace Monte Morris with Michael Porter. Like if they're losing and they need scoring, you can put Porter in there. You still have Grant defend Mitchell. Obviously, it's going to make them even worse defensively, and you run the risk of them isolating Porter, like you were saying. But that's something they can do. Just keep Grant on the floor and have him do his best to just stay inside the jersey of Donovan Mitchell. Whereas they can't put Porter in for Grant unless they're playing Torrey Craig also. So I think the minutes for Morris are more volatile. I think, my assumption is that you see similar to last game, but with it being a 2-game slate, and they're obviously in tournaments being merit to trying to leverage against the field, I think that Monte Morris on DraftKings getting 44% ownership while Michael Porter gets 6% ownership is probably one of the highest upside spots you could leverage, because I think if you play this game 100 times, that more often than not, Monte Morris plays big minutes and Michael Porter's back to his 23 or 24. But I think that there's enough times out of those 100 that Porter gets hot, stays in the game, or something weird happens and he gets more minutes, that it's probably advantageous to be over that 6% on Porter and leveraging against those Monte Morris minutes that everyone else is counting on.
And you mentioned foul trouble, not just fouling out for Jeremy Grant, but the foul trouble in the second quarter where he caught his third. Monte Morris was the direct sub for him there. Played.
Gary Harris is out.
Yeah, I saw. I was going to mention it just after this, but played 4 minutes there. You're right. It's a little bit more volatile. If you guys missed what he just said, Gary Harris has officially been ruled out. So there's your news on that. Let's put a bow on Denver then and move over to Utah. Now that we know Gary Harris is out, how are you prioritizing the Nuggets in a very short slate?
Yeah, so I mean, Jokic and Murray, obviously, whatever you get to, you're happy with. I feel better about Jokic just because the prices are pretty close, and you're getting more in the way of peripherals. Even though Murray's assist percentage has been higher, you're getting the rebounding from Jokic, and I think over a larger sample, you're getting at least similar, if not more, assists from Jokic. As far as cash games go, Jeremy Grant, Monte Morris both look like two really good values. I think in tournaments, especially if ownership holds how it is, leveraging some Michael Porter. Playing some Michael Porter at the expense of Jeremy Grant makes sense because Porter's salary has come down with him going back to the bench. And there's plenty of ways this game can play out where they need his scoring and he gets a few extra minutes over Morris. So I think that's a spot you could look to in tournaments.
Okay. On the other side, Donovan Mitchell's just been decimating this defense. Like I said, 131 points per 100 possessions. It's one of the worst defensive ratings you'll see, especially for the 3 seed Denver Nuggets. It's crazy. But Mitchell, who had never had a 50-point game in his career, and now has 2 50-point games in the same series, 57 career high by a mile and 51 last time out in 48 minutes. He's been an absolute stud. And a lot of these games, interestingly, Adam, he's like last game he had 51 points. He only knocked down 4 threes on 7 attempts. He's doing a lot getting to the rim. He's been just crushing them, being able to get into the paint to the basket with ease. He's $9,700 on DraftKings, though. The price discrepancies are pretty significant across the board. On FanDuel, you've got Mitchell coming in at $8,500. And then on our sponsor, SuperDraft, he still has a 1.45 multiplier, which I found pretty crazy. How are we approaching him today?
Yeah, great multiplier on SuperDraft there, obviously. They don't have an answer. So much of what we just talked about with Denver was kind of built around what they are going to try and do because of Donovan Mitchell, and there's really no answer to it. Torrey Craig kind of slows him down sometimes, but they're not looking to really play him that many minutes. Jeremy Grant hasn't been able to do it. I mean, you look at last game where Craig got the fewest minutes and Mitchell just torched them. So I don't really see any reason to think that changes. Like they don't have an answer defensively for Mitchell. Looking at the NBA.com stats, their usage percentage is calculated a bit differently than most other places. And so it's typically lower than you'll see mentioned other places. They still have Donovan Mitchell at 37.6% for this series. So, I don't really see any reason to think that changes because, again, they don't have an answer. So I know he's really expensive. I think you should at least, be paying attention to the ownership there. And he is only coming in at 24%. It's going to be, it's not someone you're getting to in like optimal lineups or from a medium projection standpoint because he's priced basically the same as Kawhi Leonard, who no matter, if you're using projections that are good at all, you're going to get Leonard there, but it does give you an opportunity, basically half the ownership to make that pivot if you want to.
Okay. Donovan Mitchell's averaging 20 and a half drives per game in this series, which is pretty significant. He's shooting 67% on those drives to the rim, shooting 67% on those drives to the rim. He's averaging 5 more drives than he did on the year. And he's on drives this season, he averaged 47% shooting. So what a massive difference we've seen there. It's really killing them. What about Mike Conley? Price point's not too bad on him. DraftKings 6,700. Usage hasn't been bad. I think it's around 25% in this series. And while I don't anticipate him getting Donovan Mitchell minutes, I do think it's pretty evident that he can get up there and run. Now his last the one game was a monster blowout. He played 25. He played 32 minutes last game. But I don't know, a couple times inside the bubble, he played 44 minutes against Denver in that overtime loss earlier when maybe a week into the bubble restart, 34 minutes. I don't know. It seems to me that Mike Conley's minutes have actually been low compared to what I would think he'd be getting in a big playoff series.
Yeah, so one other stat that I just pulled up on Mitchell, in the playoffs so far, he's averaging 15 and a half pick and roll possessions per game. During the regular season, he averaged 11.6. So, again, just clearly that's how they're attacking Denver, and it's been Mitchell. As far as Conley goes, I don't think it would be surprising at all if you saw his minutes get up to like 34 here. He did miss time for the birth of his child. So, maybe they're just kind of trying to slowly bring him back into things at least a little bit. The thing that makes it tough, though, is that I think his price point is at 6,700 on DraftKings is a little bit tougher to get to when you kind of look at the slate as a whole. I'm not sure how often you really get to that price point because you have Jamal Murray for 1,300 more, who I think without question has the higher ceiling. You'd be shocked if Mike Conley goes and takes over this game offensively. From Denver, it's basically going to be Murray or Jokic. So I think the ceiling's higher for Murray, and I'd rather get there. Or I'd rather save some money, go down to, any of the other guards. Even Joe Ingles is $1,600 less than Conley is. And, Lou Williams is $300 less. And then, have more money to pay for a Mitchell or a Kawhi or Luka or whoever. So I think it's a really awkward price point for Conley. I'm not sure how to really work out from a roster construction standpoint.
Thanks for the super chat, by the way. Stefan 3 said 1 second place 40K on August 2nd or August 21st. Congrats. That's awesome, man.
That's awesome.
Tell Alex I'm coming for him. Got a ways to go, but congrats and thanks for the super chat.
I said that a month ago. I'm not sure I've had a winning slate since. I think he had something to do with it.
What about Clarkson? 1.7 multiplier on SuperDraft, but everywhere else he's up past 5K now.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be tough to get to. Obviously the argument you would make for him is 2-game slate. Jordan Clarkson can score a bunch. I think I would rather roster a $5,200 Clarkson than a $6,700 Conley, just because he's cheaper and he at least has that path to doing well. But
do you think the range of outcomes is that much different? Well, it is, but how much different is how different, but how great is the difference in range of outcomes between these guys?
I don't think it deserves a 25% price difference or whatever it is here. It's basically what I'm getting to. I don't think either one's going to be a great play on a point per dollar basis, but you're getting a similar, probabilistic outcome from Clarkson as you are from Conley for a big discount. So played 27.5 minutes last game, didn't close. They went with Ingles and Royce O'Neal over him. But again, I think that one good rule to set would probably be not to play Clarkson and O'Neal together. Not one that you have to set with it being a 2-game slate, but I think that the closing lineup is basically going to be Conley, Gobert, Mitchell, probably Ingles, and then if they're winning, Royce O'Neal, and if they're losing, Jordan Clarkson. So I think that you probably only get one of them closing.
Okay. Royce O'Neal is a good piece for this team right now. The truth is he's a good piece, Adam, for this matchup against Denver. If you go and you face a far superior offense and a team defensively that can also slow you down, because Denver hasn't been able to slow Utah down, Royce O'Neal for 37 minutes a game may turn into more of a liability than an asset because he is a one-dimensional player. But in a spot like this, and when Donovan Mitchell is carrying the team each and every game, Royce O'Neal can stay out there for a lot of minutes, and Quinn Snyder isn't really worried about that. That said, that being said, it's very unlikely that Royce O'Neal gives you one of those big games, and he did it once. But I don't know. He's cheap on a 2-game slate, so we need to talk about him.
Right. So, again, I mentioned it with Clarkson, but I think O'Neal's minutes are ultimately game flow dependent. If they're winning and this is a tight game throughout, they're more than happy to leave him out there and have him play big minutes because you can let Donovan Mitchell run the offense. You don't have to worry about Jordan Clarkson stealing the ball from Donovan Mitchell. And, you can just kind of go that way. O'Neal's a good defender and that works out fine. If they're behind, if they're down 10 with 7 minutes to go in the fourth, you're probably going to see Clarkson playing those minutes over O'Neal, which really matters because O'Neal's not a high usage guy. He's not a high assist guy. He's not a high rebound guy. He just does like a little bit of all of it. So if you can get 37, 38 minutes from him, there's a decent path to him paying off, $4,500 salary. If he only plays 30 minutes, it's really, really unlikely that happens. One thing that I did notice though, is we only have him projected for 20% ownership on DraftKings, and that's because you have Monte Morris, because you have Trey Burke for Dallas, because you have Jeremy Grant. So on a lot of the 4-game slates, you were getting 40, 50% ownership on Royce O'Neal, which I lobbied pretty hard against because he's just such a low per minute producer. It's really hard for him to break a slate open. But now on this slate, if he's going to be the lowest owned out of that group, not that I like him necessarily more than those guys. I think he's very similar on a per minute basis to Monte Morris and to Jeremy Grant, and they should play similar minutes. I don't think he's as good on a permanent basis as Trey Burke is. But if he's going to be the lowest owned, then he starts to carry some appeal in tournaments.
Okay. Anybody else for Utah stand out to you? We didn't really talk about Rudy Gobert yet, but like you said earlier, the center position will be without Joel Embiid now, without Miles Turner. That's not really a big one, but just throwing it out there. Soon to be without Yusuf Nurkic, but with only these 2 games today, you've got Nikola Jokic, Kristaps Porzingis has been ruled out of this one, which is another huge piece of news, meaning there's another center that you don't have. So you got Jokic, Gobert, and then you get down to like Montrezl Harrell, who is just unplayable right now. Ivica Zubac, who maybe he'll get the minutes, maybe he'll be okay, maybe he'll be in a tournament-winning lineup. Who knows? Sometimes Doc Rivers likes to give him some additional run. And Maxi Kleber, who defensively has played well, but has been god-awful offensively and completely unutilized. I wouldn't say underutilized, unutilized. So there isn't much at center at all today.
Yeah, there isn't. And, you mentioned Maxi. He's a power forward only on FanDuel, and he's power forward center on DraftKings. So even one of the more obvious values on the slate that has center eligibility can be rostered at a different position. So, I think the center position is pretty wide open if you're not paying up for Jokic. I think it's a very affordable price tag on Gobert. He's basically matching Jokic's minutes. You're getting 37, 38, 39 minutes from Gobert, who, obviously is a productive player in a variety of ways, whether it's blocks, rebounds, or getting some putbacks. So I think that really Gobert should probably be at least like 81, 8,200 on DraftKings, if not a little bit higher. So I think he is pretty clearly underpriced, whereas most of or all of the Utah team, at least most of the Utah team, got pretty significant price hikes here.
Okay. Eric asks, what's this NBA shit? It's a fucking 2-gamer. These 2-game NBA slates still get a lot more interest than the baseball slates. Just the way it is, Adam. It's just the way it goes. We do what makes the people, most of the people, happy.
Yeah, and baseball's coming up, at 6:30?
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe we'll even end it a little bit early and get them on a few minutes early if they'd like. We'll see. But yeah, it's still big contest. Awesemo himself, Alex Baker says, Laffy, you forgot Boban. All right, let's do it. Want to move to Dallas and Clippers, or is there anything else you want to hit on for Utah and Denver?
I think that's it for Utah, Denver.
Okay, if you guys have questions, we'll get to them at the end. You know how it goes, live before lock. Hold on to the questions for us until later. Or you just want to ask chat. Maybe Alex is helping out answering questions in chat and some other people in there. If you want that as well, perfectly fine by me. I'm not going to stop you. Dallas and the LA Clippers. Boban Marjanovic, baby. We'll get to him in a moment. But first, it's all about Luka Doncic. One of the greatest games. I don't want to be hyperbolic, man, because it's like definitely recency bias. But that's one of the greatest games I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I'm upset. I think I mentioned to Josh, like I was watching the game, kind of just like half watching it. And then I went and started doing something else. And I see Twitter just, losing their minds about Kawhi and Luka going back and forth. So finally I went back and watched. I literally came downstairs in time to see the buzzer beater at the end. But yeah, just such a great game. The hyperbole after kind of ruined it for me because I felt it necessary to point out that Giannis is still better. But just ridiculously fun.
Luka Doncic will win the MVP next year.
Yeah,
I would give that to him yesterday. That's how confident I am.
I mean, the only competition is what, Giannis to get it, and you're going to get more. You get more highlight type plays from Luka
for sure. Here's how I see it. MVP is still subjective, right?
Right.
There's still people making this decision. If Luka keeps doing this, I don't know how.
He gets more highlights. He's more fun to watch offensively. You're not getting an MVP for defense. Yeah, I agree with you.
You also think Chris Middleton's good though, so I don't know.
Yes, I do think Chris Middleton's good. I don't think he's as good as Luka.
No, of course not. Unmitigated disaster. Isn't it funny though how Luka goes off? Middleton goes off in that fourth quarter and they pull ahead by 16, which is the reason I don't know. It's been a struggle for Chris Middleton. And I think I saw Josh talking about Luka and Giannis and the difference between them. If Luka takes this team on his back I'm just saying. I don't think it'll happen. But if he puts his team on his back and wins this series against the Clippers in multiple games with Kristaps Porzingis out, I'm not saying he's better than Giannis, but I don't remember. I want to see Giannis go up against a very good team and shoulder the load. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to like describe like what we're, because like it's kind of similar to like me and Josh talking about Embiid and Simmons yesterday, and Josh said he thinks Embiid is better than Simmons, but Simmons is better like for a team. It's not the same thing here, but like Luka, because of his skill set, can be the guy that just takes over the game offensively and gets hot from three, whereas Giannis isn't really going to do that.
Yeah, it's so weird too because Luka airballed a three only a couple minutes before that, and then
didn't he airball three of them? I thought I saw.
Yeah. He airballed like several 3-pointers.
I didn't realize, like, I knew Luka wasn't a great shooter, but I never actually looked at his numbers. Did you realize how bad his 3-point percentage actually is?
Yeah, it's not. What's it like, 31% or something?
Yeah, 31.
What is it?
He's 31. Giannis, he's like a little over 31. Giannis is like 30.5.
Yeah. Granted,
Giannis's tend to be wide open and Luka's aren't, but
it is crazy. Yeah, that's a good point. It is crazy that it is that low. Shooting a lot better from three in the bubble, though, it looks like. All right, let's get back to it. Let's talk Luka. Kristaps Porzingis has been ruled out. So now you've got the LA Clippers who I think win this game. But Luka playing at less than 100%, you never would have known it. He had 93 DraftKings points last game. He is the reason they won. Trey Burke played well. Seth Curry has done a very good job off the bench as a reserve. But even when the defense clamped down, he still pulled it up. I don't understand how Doc is letting Reggie Jackson get switched onto him. That's a story for another day. But of all the expensive players on this slate, you've got Luka at 11K, Kawhi Leonard at 10, Donovan Mitchell at 9.7, and Jokic at 9.4. Those are all of your guys at 9K and up on DraftKings. What are we doing with Luka?
I don't really know how you can not like Luka here.
Great, yeah.
Like the argument against him would just be the Clippers are really good defensively. They have had an extra day to think about how to slow this down. They probably attack him differently than they did last game. But just from a pure upside standpoint, nobody else on this team is going to take over. Like I was actually surprised. I went back and looked. So last game he took 31 shots. 55% of them were considered open on the NBA.com stats page. So not as many contested shots as I was expecting to see there. So maybe they do approach him differently. But he played 14 games without Porzingis this season. He's averaged 1.64 DraftKings points per minute, 36.5% usage rate, 40.9% assist percentage. The only guy that I think is really comparable in terms of projection is Kawhi, but it's just hard to see the same ceiling for Kawhi because not that he doesn't have a really high ceiling, but he at least does have guys on that team with Lou Williams and George that are going to take shots, whereas Luka can just dribble down and shoot every time and nobody's going to stop it from happening.
Yeah, well said. Got another super chat. Garth West, $20 super chat. Thank you, brother. He says, what kind of rules should we be setting for the cheap players on Utah, Denver, and Dallas? What do you think about that, Adam?
So, obviously you should be more lenient on 2-game slates. Be aware kind of like whenever you set a rule, just kind of be aware of what's happening to the lineups that you're making. Make sure you don't get any unintended consequences. But if it works out okay, I wouldn't really want Jordan Clarkson and Royce O'Neal in lineups together because as I said, I think only one of them closes. You could always just do like a max 2 of Ingles, Clarkson, O'Neal or something like that. From Denver, I wouldn't want again. It's okay because of how cheap Morris is. But ideally, I wouldn't want Morris and Porter together. I think that those are the 2 spots that could be interchangeable. You could also say, only one of Millsap or Porter if you wanted to go that route. Obviously, Jokic and Plumlee you don't want together. I think those are pretty much the rules I would set there.
Okay. Well, there it is.
I wouldn't want Torrey Craig and Monte Morris together, but you're probably not getting Torrey Craig anyway.
Strong, succinct information there from Adam Scherer. What about on the periphery of this Dallas team? They do actually have some players that have looked well. And when Sal and I discussed this today, well, you and I have gone over this countless times and expressed our frustration. Rick Carlisle can make things very difficult for you to understand, especially when a certain player is out, right? Like He might start JJ Barea. He might start, when healthy, Jalen Brunson. There's a million different things he could do. You never know. He might start Boban when Kristaps Porzingis is out, or he might go small. But last game, in that overtime game where I think there were 265 available minutes, 6 players played 221 of those minutes, Adam. From Maxey playing 37, 32 in regulation. Trey Burke played 37, about 32 in regulation. Doncic played 46, 45 in regulation. And then Dorian Finney-Smith, Tim Hardaway, 34 and 35 respectively. They got both around 30 minutes in regulation. And then Seth Curry didn't see the court in overtime, but he played 30 and a half, almost 40 or 31 minutes off the bench. That's pretty much what you get. And then MKG gets a few minutes. Maybe Boban plays 15 or 16 minutes as well. But we have a good idea of what we should see today. The matchup hasn't changed. They won last game, so I don't imagine Carlisle does too much to try and mess with what was working, even though Doncic had a historically good game.
Yeah, for all those reasons, my assumption is that Carlisle runs a pretty normal rotation here. Obviously it's the playoffs too, so that's different than a random game in February where he can just start JJ Barea or do whatever he wants. Trey Burke's also just been playing well. He played well in that game. Actually had not that it means a ton, but actually the highest plus minus on the team for Trey Burke at plus 17. But in general, he's just been playing well lately. So, someone that the Sixers probably wish they still had. But I think
just stop this. Stop this madness. I finally got what I wanted with Brett Brown gone. But yes,
there you go. Congratulations.
I said to somebody the other day that Trey Burke, I was like, we had Trey Burke. Brett Brown didn't give him any minutes ever, even when we needed shooting. Same with Alec Burks. I don't know, dude. It's ridiculous. Go ahead. But that did not go unnoticed. Don't worry.
All right. Make sure you were listening.
I know. I saw you smirking over there. So.
But yeah, so I think Burke is a really good value. I would prefer him to Morris, in a similar price range, because I think he will be more productive. You don't have as many outside of Luka. You don't really have scorers out there. Like you have Hardaway, but Dorian Finney-Smith isn't a high usage guy, and neither is Maxey. So Burke should have the ball in his hands a decent amount. They also were they played him a little bit without Luka in the second half during the 3 minutes that Luka sat. So that's beneficial if they keep doing that as well. I think he looks like probably the best value on the slate as far as ceiling goes. Tim Hardaway Jr. lost some time in that game to fouls. He picked up his third in the second quarter.
Early second.
Yeah. He subbed out with 8 minutes and 11 seconds to go. I think you probably were going to see around 38 to 40 minutes from him if that hadn't been the case. The beneficiary of that was...
I think it was... I think MKG got some additional run, but I could be...
MKG was because of Finney-Smith foul trouble, I think.
Okay, well, So Tim Hardaway came off, and instantly subbing in for him was Boban. But no. Trey Burke came back.
Luka came back. Luka came back for Hardaway.
Oh yeah, you're right. Luka, no, he didn't. Did he?
Hardaway subbed out at 8:11.
You're
Luka
right.
Came back at 8:11.
My fault. Yeah, you're right.
I'm trying to figure out who stayed on longer than they would have. Maybe just JJ Barea got a few extra. I don't know. So Boban got the extra run because Maxey picked up fouls. Kid Gilchrist got some extra minutes because Finney-Smith picked up fouls. I think it was kind of just a combination. Maybe Seth Curry probably was the beneficiary there from Hardaway. But ultimately, I think you can expect 36 to 38 minutes from Hardaway here. And he should be, the second scorer out there. So a decent shot for him, especially if you're fading Luka, unless you're just fading this game entirely and thinking that it blows out, going to Hardaway probably is a pretty good leverage. Like if you don't have Luka and you play Hardaway, Burke, some combination of Hardaway, Burke, and Curry, if Luka has a bad game and it's somewhat competitive, you have to assume that at least 2 out of 3 of that Hardaway, Burke, Curry group are doing really well.
Right, no doubt. And I think you also have to assume here that Boban Marjanovic plays fewer than the 16 minutes he got last time out. Normally, I wouldn't even mention that, but people like to play him because even in limited minutes, he can give you good production. Well, I'm giving him probably 10, 11 minutes. He played every minute that Maxi Kleber didn't play. And Maxi played the entire fourth. Boban didn't see the floor. Boban subbed in the first quarter, got some run. But then Maxi had picked up 2 fouls in the second quarter. And Boban came in and had a 5-minute rotation there. I don't anticipate that being the case because Boban in other games, his rotations have been a lot shorter than that, and he doesn't get multiple rotations in the first half. So if you were liking Boban, I don't know where you're at, Adam, but I would suggest you consider he's not going to get even 16 minutes today if Carlisle does what he wanted to do last game prior to foul trouble. Yeah,
I agree with you completely. I think Boban's minutes are dependent on Maxi getting in foul trouble. Other than that, I'm expecting 10 to 12 minutes. I think because so many guys on Dallas were in first half foul trouble, but then didn't really get into it in the second half, at least too much. I'm looking at that. I'm weighing that second half rotation pretty heavily. And you had Boban come in. Kleber got his fourth, but it was basically around the same point where he subbed out in the first quarter anyway. So Boban got his 6-minute rotation there and then never came back. And that's what I think the plan was in the first half as well. So you were probably looking at 11 or 12 minutes from Boban and 36, 37 from Maxi, if not for the fouls. You see the same thing with, Finney Smith playing a bunch more minutes in the second half and Kid Gilchrist playing a little bit less than he did in the first half. Curry closed the game over Trey Burke. That's something to keep in mind. That's probably a hot hand situation, though. I think, again, if you're setting rules, it's not a must that you only have one of them, but I think there's a good chance that only one of them's on the floor to close. They're cheap enough that you can still have two. Like they probably both play 30 minutes regardless, but you're probably only getting one in the closing lineup.
We had a question in our premium Slack chat from Tedious, says thoughts on Dorian Finney-Smith or Michael Kidd Gilchrist if DFS is out. You have to assume that MKG, who is the furthest thing from a very productive DFS player, but you have to assume that MKG ends up getting a lot of minutes if DFS is out. And one of the reasons for that is while he's not a reliable offensive player, he still can play solid defense, and you're going to need that against the wings that the Clippers run out there. So if DFS doesn't play, Adam, I don't know about you. We haven't talked about this, but my assumption is Kid Gilchrist plays a good amount of minutes if that's the case.
Yeah, well, so I mean, my assumption is that Finney Smith plays.
Me too, but I want to cover everything.
It's interesting because against a lot of teams, I would say that you probably just replace Finney Smith and Seth Curry plays 40 minutes, and Kid Gilchrist plays like 20 or whatever. I don't know how much Kid Gilchrist actually can play, but against this team, you do need length, you do need some size. So I would think that Kid Gilchrist probably plays like mid-20s. You probably give a little bit more to Seth Curry, and then Justin Jackson probably gets like 16 or something.
Anything else on Dallas?
Talked about Boban. Maxi's a good value. You're not expecting a lot. You're not expecting high usage or anything, but he is really cheap, and if he can stay out of foul trouble, should play north of 36 minutes.
All right, let's close it out with the Clippers. Before we do, you guys know Awesemo.com here on the YouTube channel. If you haven't been to the site, though, I definitely recommend checking it out. We've got some great stuff over there. And we've got some of the best tools, I think the best tools in the industry, because they're created and used by the number one DFS player in the world, Alex Baker, Awesemo himself. Say hi, he's in chat. But from ownership to the top stack tools for baseball, to the Boomer Bust tool for basketball, all of the top fighter tools for UFC, NASCAR, all of that stuff, Top Driver, you name it, top golfer tools, all of the ownership for all of them, the player projections. We have everything you need to become a successful DFS player. And it's all right there at awesemo.com/join, where you can get a weekly pass, all access to everything, whether it be golf, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, everything. If they have contests for it on DraftKings, on SuperDraft, on FanDuel, we have premium content for it. We've got some free content as well, but if you want to check it out, what we've got behind the paywall, all the tools we always reference on the show, from ownership to top stacks to the projections, do that. Check it out at awesemo.com/join and scroll to the bottom of that page. You'll see tutorials. You'll see videos on all of our most popular tools, so you know what you're getting into before you decide to make that financial commitment, because we don't want you to just dive in head first. We want you to know what you're getting into before you do, so you're happy with it. So go to awesemo.com/join and check out everything we have to offer, from all the premium articles and tools and Fantasy Cruncher add-on, if you'd like that too, to the lineup builder and so much more. It's awesemo.com/join. Okay. Clippers, last team to hit on here, then we'll take some questions. Paul George has been bad. And the stats that you and I talked about earlier today, his shooting from when his classified as open shots, he's shooting miserably on them. And on wide open shots, he's shooting even worse. And he's missing a ton of shots that a defender's not even within 6 feet of him. If he's not hurt, you have to think George ultimately turns this around. And the reason for that, Adam, tying it back to the wide open shots, no matter who you are, good in the NBA, bad in the NBA, mediocre, you should be knocking down most of your wide open shots. He's not knocking down any of them.
And it's not like he is mediocre. You know, he's someone that you would expect to knock down a higher than normal percentage. So yeah, it's the thing with George too, is that because he's been bad for the entire series, the price is just really, really low on him. Like if you, for this series, he only has a 23.5% usage rate. And in part, that's probably because he can't make a shot. And so Kawhi's getting more and he's getting less. But even if you take his rates from this series that factor in how poorly he's been playing, just take if you take the usage rates and stuff, not the shooting percentage, because obviously you expect that to move back to normal levels. But even if you take that, he projects for like 44 DraftKings points. And that's with, you know, projecting a lower than normal usage rate, lower than the usage rate you would expect if he is knocking down his shots. So it's just, you know, I obviously can't say it's such a high floor that he can't fail because he's continuously failing at this price, but he's way too cheap he's way cheaper than he should be. If he were shooting at his normal levels and he were this price, he would be like 88% owned on this slate, but he's going to be like 40 or 50.
What do you think what do you think he should be at?
So I mean, we have him at I think 40% right now.
Yeah,
I would.
40.5. Yeah,
I think it should just be higher. I mean, with it being a 2-game slate, I think he projects again. Even if you just take his rates from this series, he projects a little bit higher than Gobert. If you take his normal rates, it's way higher than Gobert. It's higher than Jamal Murray. But yeah, I mean, if he's coming in at 40%, I would just be playing a ton of Paul George and hopefully he makes some shots.
It's kind of crazy that 56% on FanDuel even seems low because he's shooting guard eligible at a position that really only has a few viable players, and he's 7,500 on FanDuel. It's a crazy price.
Yeah, I mean, so on FanDuel, you have basically 4.5 guys because you have Jordan Clarkson, who I'm going to count as a half, Lou Williams, Mitchell, George, and Luka. Luka's at a totally different price tier, and he's less valuable on FanDuel because of the turnovers and no bonuses. I mean, going George Mitchell on FanDuel just gives you so much upside. He should be higher owned than that.
No doubt about it. What about Kawhi Leonard here?
I think so. He's getting a little bit more ownership than George. And it's weird because I agree that he should be getting a lot of ownership. He projects for me as the second highest scorer on the slate. It's not particularly close. He's playing 38 to 40 minutes in regulation. He's got about a 30% usage rate in the series. Everything, you know, looks great for him. 30.1% usage rate, 19.8% assist percentage, good matchup and all of that. He's so much more expensive than George that if I have to give up some Kawhi at $2,000 more expensive than George, I'm okay doing that since Kawhi is also higher owned. But, you know, I think that they're both really good plays. I would think that in pretty much every lineup I have one.
All right, we got 5 minutes to go. I want to leave the last like 3 minutes to do some final countdown rapid fire questions for everybody in chat so they can finalize their lineups. Here's what we'll do. I'll let you break down the rest of this team from Lou to Morris to Zubats to Harold and try and do it within the next minute and a half.
Yeah, so Lou obviously
always run too late.
Lou coming off the monster game with 36 points, incredibly efficient from the field. The big thing for me was that he still only played about 30 minutes in regulation. So with his price tag coming up on DraftKings, I'd be a little hesitant to get back there. Kind of like I mentioned with Conley, I think I would just kind of avoid that price range in most builds. On FanDuel, he's a little bit more favorable, but again, I just really love getting Mitchell and Paul George together there. Zubats had closed over Harrell. Last game, neither of them closed. You got Reggie Jackson back in the closing lineup. He played 23 minutes in regulation. I still don't trust Jackson at all. I don't think Harrell closes. I think that, you can take some shots at Zubats. He's cheap enough. Hopefully he gets the closing minutes. But yeah, I'm not trusting Reggie Jackson's minutes there.
All right. Take some questions in our premium Slack chat. We got Strickstein 71. Is Doncic fade crazy? It's not crazy. It's not having Doncic here. Could it work? Yeah, I think it could. But with Porzingis out, I don't know. Adam, quickly, just your quick take on this. With Porzingis out, Doncic is going to be a monster use. He's just going to have to do everything, even if they lose.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends how you're defining fade. Like, I wouldn't, if you're playing Luka in 0 lineups and you're playing a bunch of lineups, yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
If you mean like, is it crazy to not have him in a lineup? Then no.
Okay. Oh yeah, right. And he is going to be ridiculously popular, as he should be. Murray, Lou, and Gobert, or Conley, Doncic, and Zubats. So Murray, Lou, and Gobert, or
First one.
First one. Okay. Is DFS playing? I don't know. Murray, Burke, or Lou and Conley?
Murray, Burke, or Lou and Conley. I think I like the Murray Burke one.
Yeah, I do too. Especially if Murray. Yo, by the way, if you guys, and I know Dope Heathen, that was the joke. Not a joke, but I said that intentionally. If you guys spam the question, I'm not going to answer it unless I do it accidentally, and then I'm the asshole. Conley and Burke and FanDuel, or Burke and Morris? Conley and Burke, or Burke and Morris?
So Conley or Morris?
Yeah, I don't know what he's asking.
I mean, yeah, it depends on the rest of your lineup, because you're obviously not, it's not the same price, but
people are asking about Curry and Burke. Can you pair them? I think that's a good question to ask.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it when we went through that game. I think that one of them, most likely one of them closes, but they're so cheap that with it being a 2-game slate, I think it's still okay to have them together.
Landry Shamet or Curry?
Curry.
All right. And let's see. Maxey or Millsap on FanDuel?
I don't have the FanDuel ownership in front of me. I think they project pretty similarly, so I would tend to say the lower owned one. Yeah, I think they're pretty close.
John asks Zubats or Harrell. I'd go Zubats here. I have no faith in Harrell right now.
Yeah, I'd go Zubats too. And on FanDuel, I think I would go Millsap if ownership is about the same.
Doncic, Trey Burke, or Mitchell, PG-13. That's a good one.
Yeah. Man, that is a really good one.
It's really tough.
I think it's Mitchell and PG.
I think it is too.
Because those guys can so easily go for 50 fantasy points apiece.
Yep.
Easily. And if that happens, you need like 70 plus from Luka.
Yeah. Or you need a monster game from Burke as well.
Right. Yeah.
If Luka doesn't go.
And I mean, those guys can both go for 60 and just end it.
Right. Landry Shamet or Reggie Jackson?
Man, Shamet. I just don't. So Jackson closed over Shamet last game, but he was also just getting massacred defensively. So I don't think they do that again.
Random, thank you for the super chat. Adam, he says best 2 guards for DraftKings cash.
Monte Morris, is Luka?
Yeah, I think so. Mitchell's pretty expensive, but
yeah, I mean, I guess Trey Burke would be in there too.
Trey Burke's in the conversation as well. If doing a single lineup, which stud would you lock in, and who is somebody you'd fade that will be pop? Well, that's kind of tough because we just answered that one question where it's like Luka and Burke or Mitchell and Paul George. Both of them have merit. So I don't. Is there a certain stud you want to lock in today in terms of like the guys above $9,000?
No.
I don't think there is, right?
Like I would love to lock in Luka, but obviously that changes what you're getting as far as the rest of the other players go.
Exactly. All right, guys, thanks for hanging with us. As always, it's 6:30. It's lock time, tip off. Good luck tonight. Hey, 1,500 people. There was like 1,800 in here before. Hit that thumbs up on your way out the door. It is greatly appreciated. It does, believe it or not, it's the easiest, simplest way to support us, and it helps us the most outside of, becoming a subscriber, which we love all of you guys as well. We'll see you back here soon. Stick around. MLB Live Before Lock coming up next. It's Jason Floyd and Alex Baker taking you till 7:05 p.m. right here at Awesemo.com. right, guys. Good show. Thanks for producing, Jordan. Have a good show, fellas.
You guys get Boban in your lineups?
It is MLB Live Before Lock here on this Tuesday evening, or afternoon, wherever you may be. Alex, how you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Scrambling a little bit because I just got my NBA lineups. I was hoping Gary Harris would play, so the ones I put in earlier would be good, but you can't predict everything, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. It's a Tuesday. It's a big podcast day for me. I think this is like show 3 or 4 I'm on today. So yeah, man. It's my typical Tuesday. We'll do this show, and then I'll be editing my podcast here tonight. We're watching a little Dana White Contender Series, watching a little baseball. I've got about one TV and about 3 laptops set up, watching various things.
Nice, man. That's scouting. Now that you're doing all these DFS shows, so appreciate all that hard work, man.
My wife jokes with me. She says, "You have like your own little sports bar set up in our living room."
Yeah, I mean, that's the dream. Like, unfortunately, I don't have that, man. Maybe you can give me some tips after the show here.
Oh, I'm telling you, man, if it's a college football Saturday in my house and I'm not on the road, yeah, pretty much I've got about at least minimum 2 laptops, an iPad, and various games on the TV. So that's kind of the way my weekends go. Of course, we're here to get you ready for today's MLB slate. Of course, we are sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They are the most trusted name in fantasy sports, and they now include CSV upload and CSV edit features. We're looking to place those multiple lineups. You got to make better choices. Choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. And, of course, when we're talking about Yahoo, if you want to pay out for the most expensive pitcher today, it is Shane Bieber. $61 on Yahoo, $12,000 on FanDuel, $10,800. In terms of Yahoo, what's your thoughts on him in this spot?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care what the price is with Bieber. Like, he's been just like out of this world this year. So, I mean, he's going to be kind of the guy that's going to be a great spend up today. The only thing maybe complicating that a little bit is we also got Jarrett Cole on the slate, and I mean, he's tremendous as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the top pitchers today, I mean, obviously Bieber and Cole are going to stick out to you. But, the one thing when I was putting together my sheet in terms of the pricing on the various platforms is that basically once you get after Bieber and Cole, it is kind of different depending on what platform you want to play on. Is there a pitcher outside of those top 2 that stick out to you on one platform as opposed to another?
Oh, man, I'm locking him in. No, but yeah, let's see here. I mean, we got 10 games, so there's a lot of good pitchers. Like, honestly, my player pool for pitcher today, I'm just running crunches, and I notice only maybe 8 guys are coming up with any frequency. So it does look a little bit hard to find the starting pitchers tonight. So what about you, man? Have you narrowed it down, or are you trying to take chances on a lot of different guys?
I'm taking chances because, look, Bieber's going to be highly owned. Cole's going to be highly owned. A guy who's coming up in some crunches for me on FanDuel? It's Adam Wainwright.
That's interesting because I thought you were about to say Lucas Giolito because that's the guy coming up a ton for me. I think he's our one of the highest owned in our projections. So Wainwright that's kind of an interesting one. I wasn't really expecting you to say that.
Now, also the reason that I had to fit him in is because I like a Dodgers stack tonight.
Okay, that makes sense then, because you got to get the bats. Now, Wainwright, actually, he doesn't look horrible against Kansas City, so maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at our ownership projections, I know Giolito was someone that I know when I looked a little while ago, yeah, he's right number one on DraftKings.
Yeah, that's a little bit surprising, but really good strikeout pitcher. He's going up against Pittsburgh. They're not doing so hot this year so far, so definitely a guy that we can look to in Giolito.
You got any thoughts on a contrarian pitcher today?
Yeah, let me pull up our ownership projections for that, because that's what it's all about, is finding that low end guy. Let me see. Marco Gonzalez at 6.6K on DraftKings. He's going up against San Diego. Now they're in San Diego, so that's a good pitcher's park. So that's a positive factor. And he's about an average strikeout pitcher. So that's just kind of like a punt play that I might have a couple of shares of.
Yeah, we're all looking for those punt plays in terms of in terms of the bats and stacks. I mentioned about the Dodgers. I mean, look, the question with the Dodgers, and I know Terry wrote about this today on Awesemo.com. You can check out his article where he mentioned about a Dodger stack. It's more of, do you have the salary to pay for it? If obviously you're looking at a Mookie Betts, Seager's, another one, Bellinger. If you want to add a fourth one in there, it's just a matter of, can you fit into a lineup that you're happy with?
For sure, yeah. I mean, that's always a question. That kind of is something that makes the slate interesting, was when you have a really good stack that is that's hard to get, because then you have to make some tough choices. Now, I'm looking at the Vegas lines here. LA is projected for 5.6 runs. The over-under of this game is only 9. So, I mean, they're not buying into this whole idea that I know EMAC is trying to pitch that San Francisco is a new Coors Field. So I don't think it's a team you necessarily have to go for. So I think this is a slate where you can mix it up. But I'm noticing that the over-unders this year are just getting lower and lower. I'm seeing a lot of 7.5s on the board here, 8. So I was reading today about the ball being different this year. It's like every year they're switching it up on us. So what have you made of that?
Look, in terms of San Francisco,
just like it seems like the run scoring is a little bit down this year. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I just think the way this season has come about, I think there's so many unknowns with the players of like, hey, what were you doing in terms of when you left spring training and to when you came back to this modified spring training to get you ready for a 6-game season? Were you out just hanging with the fellas, having a few cocktails, or were you actually in the gym getting some work in?
I know, like, that's the shocking thing, is you think with nothing to do, like, people would be grinding like this whole period, but it turned out maybe people were having a little bit too much fun in some instances.
One of the things is I just kind of glance over at the YouTube chat that I'm kind of seeing here. It seems like a lot of people want to fade Bieber tonight.
Well, let's see. He's going up against Minnesota, so I'm sure that is a huge reason that people want to fade Bieber. Minnesota is a team with good power. They don't strike out as much as your average team, but on the other hand, I mean, Bieber has been one of the best pitchers in baseball so far this year. He's at outrageous strikeout numbers. I'm just stalling a little bit so I can pull them up myself, actually. So he's struck out 14 batters per 9 innings, 43% strikeout rate. That's absurd.
I mean, this is the thing about Bieber is kind of like you have this thought of, okay, when the bad game is going to come at some point. It's just, we know that's the odds it's going to happen at some point. Is it tonight going up against those Minnesota bats? I mean, if you look at his pricing on FanDuel, for example, at 12,000, like, what is the score he has to get to for you to say, I'm happy at paying up for 12,000?
Yeah, I mean, probably 50, I don't know, 40. Let's see. So Cleveland is 80 degrees tonight, so that is probably a negative for Bieber's chances. I guess he's just been so good this year that people are really banking on him being able to continue that. So it's really a matter, like, do you trust what's happened so far this year with Bieber, or do you think it's more fiction?
Look, it's tough to bet against him right now. I mean, because all of a sudden he could go out there in 4 innings and all of a sudden magically have 9 strikeouts already. And then you're going to be sitting there, if he's not in your lineup, going, damn it, I knew I should have paid up for him.
Yeah, I mean, FOMO and DFS is huge. So if you're going to feel that way, if Bieber has a big game, then I would just recommend building another lineup with him in it.
In terms of, I know one of the questions we got was in terms of the pitching was about Castillo going for the Reds. He's $42 on Yahoo, $9,100 on FanDuel, $9,600 on DK.
Yeah, Castillo is another guy who's a good strikeout pitcher. He's good price on FanDuel at $9,100 and on Yahoo certainly at $42. Matchup versus the Brewers, they've come back down to earth this year. They look like just an average team in pretty much every respect. So I think that Castillo looks like a good option. And with some other exceptional plays on the slate, maybe he'll be a little bit underowned.
Looking at our top stack tool over at Awesemo.com. And of course, if you want to take advantage to be able to have access to it, you got to get that Awesemo Plus MLB weekly pass for $15.95. Just go to Awesemo.com/join so you can look at those player projections, ownership projections, the top pitchers tool, the top stack tool that I've just mentioned here as well. And looking at some ownership shares that we have up there. The one that Alex that jumps out to me, and someone had asked about this, the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Cubs here. So they, man, I can't find them. All right, they're playing against Detroit, so pretty much Detroit has been the punching bag of the league so far. Their lineup today, the Cubs, looks really good, and they're cheap. I mean, Jason Hayward is batting 6th. He's 2,400 on DraftKings and 2,500 on FanDuel. And then like the rest of the lineup, Ian Happ leading off for 4K. And then Spencer Turnbull, he's an up-and-coming guy. So definitely not anyone to shy away from stacking against. So, I mean, I can understand why the Cubs are maybe the most popular stack tonight.
Yeah, I'm just looking at on FanDuel their salaries. Happ 3,300, Rizzo 3,200, Baez 2,900. That's your 1, 2, 3 hitters right there in the Cubs lineup.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you stick to the heart of the order, you might be a little bit safer on DraftKings because they're priced up a little bit. Wilson Contreras in particular, but once you start trying to fit in the expensive pitcher with the Cubs, I think that's when you might be forcing it a little bit too much. So if I was going to approach this stack, I'd probably take Rizzo and Baez because they are a little bit pricier and harder to fit in your lineup.
Of course, if you're over there in our premium Slack channel, a little recommendation: if you at me, it's got a good chance of getting read on the show because there is definitely a lot of things that do come in here. We briefly touched on Garrett Cole there in a little bit, and Jeff was asking, is Cole safe for cash with the weather in Atlanta?
That's a great question. So let me pull up the weather forecast for Atlanta. Now, Atlanta is a place that you gotta always be careful with Atlanta because they seem to have storms coming out of nowhere. So we are getting up to the point where the radar should be a really good indication for how safe this game is. I'm pulling up the radar right now, and I'm seeing just a lot of light rain. Actually, a lot might be over-exaggerating it a little bit. A moderate amount of light rain. And looking at the trend here, it looks like it's fading out, but it's still loading.
Yeah, someone actually put a screenshot there from a tweet just saying Atlanta radar continues to slowly improve.
Yeah, it looks like it's just getting a little bit lighter and lighter green. And actually, like based on the radar trend, I'd say this game is safe.
Yeah, definitely something to play in there. In terms of some other stacks, just kind of looking at the ownership that we have up there. One of the stacks that's right up there is the Cardinals, and I know that came up in a crunch I did right before we started of teaming them up with the Dodgers in terms of putting Molina, Wong, who I know has got great ownership today as well.
Yeah. Sorry, I got distracted a little bit by the weather. You said Molina?
Yeah, it was Molina, Wong, who I know's got pretty sizable ownership today. Edmund had come up in that stack as well.
Okay, so man, the Cardinals stack looks really good today. They're just really cheap, have a really good projection, and they're going to be really, really high owned, especially Colton Wong leading off. His ownership's off the chart. So that could be a situation where they're a good team, but you want to really have a contrarian lineup with the rest of your lineup if you're going to the Cards.
Over there in the Slack got asked if Cole or Giolito is a better SP2 for cash.
Man, that
SP2.
No, SP2.
2,600.
Wow.
Woo.
All right.
You're paying up today.
Yeah, I think given that there is so much value on this slate, that you probably play Cole because he's the better pitcher, and just I think you can make it work.
Mentioning about that, the 10-game slate, I mean, how has that affected how you put lineups together today?
Well, I think on a 10-game slate is like there's just such a likelihood that one team's going to have a really big outlier performance, and you're going to need them as your stack. And the odds that there are two teams that do that are pretty high as well. So I'm definitely taking some shots on a lot of different teams because it's going to be really hard to pinpoint one team that's overwhelmingly likely to win the slate.
We have two notable players coming back from the IL today. Aaron Judge for the Yankees and also Acuna Jr. for the Braves. Acuna 5,200 on DK. Aaron Judge at 5,800. What's your kind of take on both these guys coming back?
Yeah, I think in baseball with so many games, like they're not going to be coming back unless they're healthy. Now, this is a shorter season, so maybe that's not as true as it is normally. But I'm perfectly comfortable rostering either one. In fact, I see Judge he's going to be a little bit low owned tonight because of his price of on DraftKings of 5,800. So Judge looks like a guy that, if you can save the salary for him, could be a really nice play.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the key thing is can you save that money for him? In terms of our home run picks, I already told you who my home run pick is, and it's Joey Gallo. And the reason being, he's got 9 homers, seven homers this year, excuse me. 5 of them have come against left-handed pitching. Let me go with the trend tonight. Let me go with Joey Gallo to get home run number 6 off left-handed pitching.
Yeah, I mean, Joey Gallo is like a cheat code for home runs, man. So I like that call a lot.
I will tell you, I was sitting here in the office. I was doing some work, and I had MLB Network on, and I saw that come across the scroll, and I go, oh, let me write that little nugget down. Then went into Baseball Reference, started looking at some things. I'm like, oh, Gallo's going to be my pick tonight.
Nice, man. I'll go with the guy in the same game. Or wait, no, this is a different game. I always like picking a contrarian guy, and Jarrett Cole is certainly a great pitcher, but Freddie Freeman's got that platoon advantage. Maybe he'll hit one out of the park tonight.
Of course, let's get some questions from Slack here from our premium members. Bruce says, thoughts on the Oakland Yankees stack?
Well, the Yankees, I like. They're in a really good spot versus Ian Anderson. One guy that really stands out is Mike Tauchman batting 4th, so he's a really good value play. And then with Oakland, let me find. All right, they are going up against Kyle Gibson in Texas, so they're pretty expensive, so I think that's going to drive down the ownership a little bit. So like Oakland, I like that pairing because the Yankees are kind of the chalk stack and Oakland is the spend up stack. So I don't think many people will land on that combination.
Art's asking us about thoughts on a Rocky stats night in FanDuel GPP. In terms of, let me pull up their FanDuel salaries here. In terms of, so you got Trevor Story, 4,100, batting in the second spot. Blackman, 3,900 at 4. Arenado, the 3-hole, 3,800. Look at some other. Garrett Hampson, 2,500. Matt Kemp, 2,400. Tapia, they're 2,300. So what's kind of your take on the question about a Rocky stack?
Yeah, I think they look nice in Arizona versus Alex Young. That's a good matchup. Matt Kemp and Josh Fuentes batting 5th and 6th look particularly well priced, and I think they're a really good stack. I would throw in maybe. I see Blackman is going to be really low owned tonight because he's got the lefty-lefty matchup. So that could be one guy to take a chance on, even though he's a guy you're going to have to force in because his optimizer is not going to give you him. I mean, he's a great player too.
Yeah, just kind of looking at the top stack tool we have on FanDuel. So they're not one of the top 4. So that's something to consider if you're looking to be a little contrarian, which that's what we're all trying to do. Of course, be sure to smash that like button right here on YouTube. If you're not subscribed to Awesemo, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Also, hit that notification bell. Let you know exactly when we've got a new show up on the channel there. As always, it's a great way to show you our appreciation for this show and everything we do here at Awesemo.com. In terms of some other things that we necessarily have not talked about, in terms of pitchers, one pitcher that I saw some people kind of talking about a little earlier is the Padres and Paddock.
Yeah, Paddock is definitely like the SB2 that's a go-to tonight because he's really cheap. On DraftKings at 7,800, on Yahoo at 42. So I think, he's a good strikeout pitcher. This matchup, though, is really the selling point because he's in San Diego. That's a great ballpark. He's going up against the Mariners, who are probably one of the weakest teams in the MLB, and they strike out a lot. So I think Paddock is probably one of the best plays tonight.
By the way, just going to let Jordan know so I see the chat. Yeah, in the chat. Yeah, we got the haircut today. I realized after I did my podcast with Pete last night, I go, oh, this hair is getting a little out of control. Got to go see the barber, you know.
Nice, man. Well, I wish I could have a haircut these days, but you're a lucky guy, man.
Look, in this quarantine world, man, there was a time where I could not go to the barber, and I was struggling a little bit. Like, I was like, you know what? I wasn't going to let my wife touch my hair. First off, that was not happening. I told her that. I said, no. You are not cutting my hair, and I'm certainly not trying to cut my own hair. But yeah, it's wasn't too bad. Dan's asking a question on this is on DraftKings with the White Sox in terms of a stack with them, and just kind of as I pull up the projections on their stack on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think really talented team. I'd be curious what it says in the top stacks.
They're one of the better ones.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Going up against Steven Brault, like that's the guy we can definitely pick on. And they just have a ton of power bats. Like the first 7 guys in the order all are really solid. So I think that I kind of like the White Sox, man. What's one stack you're kind of keying in on today?
Well, I mentioned about the Dodgers, but look, you got to pay up for that one. The Cardinals were another one I was looking at. I think I look at that Yankees. For some reason, I see a big night from Aaron Judge. It's just a question of, do you have the roster construction to pay up for him?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he could be sneaky, coming off the injury list too. Like I kind of like that call.
Travis asking us for some thoughts on Chatwood, of course, is going for the Cubbies.
Yeah, Chatwood, he's really had crazy strikeout numbers this year so far. The problem is that his salary has gone way up as a result. So even though he's facing the Tigers, I'm just taking more of a wait and see approach with Chatwood because I don't know if he's really turned the corner like that. But you got to love that he's facing the Tigers, right?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely plays into it. I mean, I think the other question is, coming back from the injury, this is his first game since the 6th, with that mid strain that he had. I think that's got to be kind of, if you're going to roster him, the question is going to be is there a limited pitch count on him tonight?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, he's been pitching pretty regularly this year, hasn't missed a lot of time. So my general rule of thumb is if they haven't missed more than like 1 or 2 starts, like you're probably set.
Yeah. In terms of looking at some of the numbers for the Chicago batch, you mentioned about liking that stack a little earlier. Kyle Schwaber obviously is someone that people are going to look at. I know I saw some Jason Kipnis thoughts. People were asking about that a little earlier. I mean, he's batted 9th. I typically don't really like to play the 9-hole hitter. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, like they're definitely not the preferred one to take in a stack for sure. So if they are good at like making a lineup that's unique though. So like the reason I would take a 9-hole hitter is like if you need to make a lineup that is really hard to achieve otherwise. But go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, of course, we're about 10 minutes away before lock. And I thought this was an interesting question on YouTube from R. Stanley. Can you play Bieber and Cole with cheap bats?
No. You're
going really cheap.
I'll just go there because like the thing is when you pay for like 2 stud bats, like the stacks you get are gonna be bad. So like as a rule of thumb, I would advise against that kind of roster construction. Now, like the reason why is because if you try to get the best bats that are cheap and 2 really expensive pitchers, you're just going to have the same lineup as a lot of people who also choose that because there's only like a limited number of ways to build that. So I definitely like having a little bit more like creativity with the lineup.
So, last time we did a show together, we talked about who's that low end pitcher we're going with.
Mm-hmm.
You got one? I was lucky the last time. I hit that one. So I'm pretty sure I will not hit it this time. Just law of averages.
Well,
there is not a lot I love.
Yeah,
under 8. I mean, under 8K Paddock on DraftKings is the best one that sticks out. But like, I wouldn't call him I guess because of the 10-game slate, he's about middle of the pack. Man, oof.
I'd go with Paddock because he's got the best matchup versus the Mariners and a great park. So, I mean, I think that makes up for him not being like an off-the-charts pitcher. So he'd be my preferred option. But is there someone you're finding that's cheap that we can maybe punt with?
Oh, man. There is not much. Maybe Julio on FanDuel at 7,500. You don't got to pay as much for him on FanDuel as you do DraftKings. But, yeah, on DraftKings, Paddock would be my guy. Zachary says, he goes, and I appreciate there in the super chat, man. I really do appreciate that. Says, I have a lot of San Diego tonight. What is your thoughts on that? Appreciate what you guys do.
Well, they're in a park that's not great for stacks, just because it's relatively big and the weather in San Diego is usually on the cooler side. So that's a negative. The positive is they're going up against Marco Gonzalez, who is he's not like an exceptional pitcher by any means. He's about average. So I think that they could be a decent option, but there's nothing about them that's really jumping out at me. But do you see any value in San Diego today?
No, not really. Not in terms of value. Someone had mentioned, and I wanted to pull it up, an Indian stack, thinking it could be low owned, and that would definitely be the case. They would be low owned. They were mentioning Ramirez, Lindor, and Hernandez.
Yeah, I mean, the Indians are a great team, so I don't mind that at all.
Of course, if you do have any questions, be sure to hit that up in the chat. We're 9 minutes away before we will have the first games here on the main slate. In terms of games tonight, is there a particular game that piques your interest?
I mean, honestly, like like I was looking more at the basketball games as far as what I'd be watching, but that's not the thing to say on a baseball show, I suppose. So,
look, you're being honest, man. You're being authentic, man. You know?
Thanks, man.
Look, that's the one thing I've learned all my years of podcasting, man. It's about being authentic. Yeah, look, I will definitely be watching some basketball tonight. But I think probably since I do like that Dodger stack tonight, that will probably be when that game is going off. That'll definitely be one of the 4 games on my MLB TV that I'm paying attention to see what is going on in terms of that. By the way, that was just the Angels lineup for their doubleheader game just came in. I had game 1 on here in TV here for a while. In terms of some other pitchers we really haven't talked about. Is there someone that we really haven't touched on that you're liking the ownership on from what we're seeing?
I mean, I think like your best strategy today is probably sticking to a core of the top guys. I mean, it's not kind of the sexy strategy, but they're just so much better. Like there's about 8 guys that might be like plays I'd consider good, and then the rest of them are kind of all in a mess of guys that don't have a lot of value. So I'm just gonna stick to that group of guys like Cole, Paddock, Giolito, Bieber. And then if I want to punt, like that's certainly a good option too. But it's not going to be because of all of the pitcher. It's just because it's what fits.
Yeah, someone had also, someone asked a question about Cole and Bieber in the same lineup. Someone actually asked that about a cash lineup.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense then, yeah, because like that just locks in that point upside, and you're not worried about the ownership because there's a lot of really cheap bats. Like some of the Cardinals and Cubs jumped out a lot, and that will help you maximize your floor, which helps in the cash games.
We got asked over on Slack about if we could talk a little bit about Brandon Woodruff going for the Brewers tonight up against the Reds.
Yeah, Woodruff is a guy that he's been going a lot deeper this year, and that's definitely something I like to see. As far as the matchup, it's a little bit below average. The Reds really don't strike out a ton, and the park is pretty bad for pitching. So those are some knocks against him, but certainly a guy who has a lot of talent. And the price is nice too on FanDuel and DraftKings. Just a pretty nice salary to fit in. So if you want to go cheap at pitcher, maybe pairing Woodruff and Paddock would be a really good option.
Yeah, I think Paddock, just in terms of roster construction, makes things really simple. So I'm seeing so many people comment about fading Shane Bieber. I in a way I understand that, but then in a way I'm like, man. He could go out there and have 12 strikeouts, and you're going, why the hell did I fade this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I love the concept of fading Bieber, but Shane Bieber wouldn't be the number 1 Bieber on my list. I mean, he's the thing is like in baseball, the pitchers get there about half the time. Like they score above their projection. It's like pretty normally distributed, so. You can just count on guys like Bieber for a good performance like every other time to get you the points you need at pitcher. Now, you got to get all the rest of the spots right too, and he makes it harder on the salary cap. So that's definitely a reason why I'm not going to have him like in every lineup, but he's definitely going to be a part of my core today.
So you're saying that we're not going to be rocking some Justin Bieber in those headphones?
I mean, he's got some good ones, like Love Yourself. I don't know. Like that one's a classic. I'm not going to lie.
I am pretty confident saying I do not have any Justin Bieber songs in my iPhone. I'm pretty confident saying that.
How can you lead me into that one?
Trust me, I used to work in top 40 radio. Yeah. Heard a lot of Justin Bieber. A lot.
Yeah. I mean, not really the genre you associate with fantasy sports. I can say that.
That's a very good way. So I wanted to ask about Marquez going for the Rockies. If you thought that was a good spot for him.
Marquez for the Rockies. Let's see. Yeah, I mean he's a good pitcher, and Arizona. It's a little bit of an upgrade from Coors Field, but the lineup that the Diamondbacks are rolling out just is really hard to strike out. And when you compare him to other pitchers in that price range, like Woodruff and Paddock, it just makes it hard to really get to him.
Yeah, I saw the note on the Rockies. Their road ERA is insane this year. I want to say it was under 3.
Man, now that I've built my lineups, I'm kind of backing down from this not pairing Bieber and Cole thing because I'm getting a lot of lineups with Bieber and Cole. I don't know. How did your lineups end up looking?
I've just got a couple today. I did have some Bieber. I did have some Cole. It's for me with them. It's just the roster construction. By the way, that number I was mentioning about the Rockies. So they've had 14 games on the road. They've got a 2.82 ERA. Now ERA doesn't mean much in DFS. Vice versa at home, that ERA is a 6.13.
Yeah, I mean
that is a drastic difference.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, that's so obviously I always tend to look at Rockies pitchers outside of Coors Field is something I always kind of play into. Not sure if this is true or not, but someone is saying that the Atlanta Brave Yankee game has been postponed due to weather.
Well, that sounds like huge news here. No, it says delayed. I'm not as worried about a delay. I mean, it's too late to do anything about it now, but the weather, I know there was a postponement in Atlanta just recently, but the weather tonight doesn't look nearly as severe.
I'm telling you what, even when it's just delayed, that still scares me, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, that's if there's a delay, it definitely increases the chances of postponement, but I can tell you guys the radar looks really strong in Atlanta, so I'd be surprised if anything happened to this game.
Of course, you got to be sure to check out our sponsor of the show, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Of course, you got to check out those salaries they have up there. I mentioned about Bieber, $61 on Yahoo. It should mention that Yahoo DFS now does have CSV upload and CSV edit. Make better choices. Choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. Also, you got to be sure to check out that Awesemo Plus MLB Weekly Pass for $15.95. All you got to do is go to awesemo.com/join. We have reached lock here, Alex. What's kind of how you feeling tonight about your lineups? You feeling good?
Man, I don't know if you everyone can probably relate to this. Is that you build your lineups? It's like, man, what did I even do? How did I get these lineups? I don't even know if they're good lineups because with the NBA and MLB kind of bunched up, it makes it harder. But it's baseball, so anything can happen. We'll see how it goes.
I would say I'm more confident in my MLB lineups than my NBA lineups. Whole reason, I only got 2 games to pick from in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, NBA, you got to get the perfect lineup. MLB, you just got to get lucky with a couple stacks. So I'm hoping for the best.
I will say, Pete sent me a screenshot from Tom. Kudos to Tom last night, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Tom won 100K in a 2-game slate. That's hard to do. We'll see if someone can pull it off tonight.
Yeah, of course. Be sure to check out everything we have over here at Awesemo.com. And be sure to become a premium member there. All you got to do is go to Awesemo.com/join. So that is going to wrap it up for Live Before Lock. Good luck to everyone. Hope you win some big cash tonight. Of course, be sure to come back tomorrow for the strategy show and Live Before Lock.